Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm checking out the Sony XB13. Let's check it out. So this is everything that comes in the box. I'm just going to file all the warranty information and user guide right over to the side along with the box. It does come with a USB Type-C charging cable. And right here you can see the new Sony XB13. Let me give you guys a nice close-up here. And while you guys are checking this out, let's talk about some of the features. So if you're familiar with the previous model XB12, you're going to see that the design here hasn't really changed much. At a quick glance, you probably won't even tell the difference. But Sony did square off the bottom near the passive radiator just slightly instead of having it more rounded as you saw in the XB12. It's also available in multiple colors. The color that I have right here is light blue. It features a 1.8 mono driver with extra bass and a sound diffusion processor. That sound diffusion processor helps with a 360-degree radius of sound. It also has Bluetooth 4.2, which is the same as the previous model XB12, which is confusing because Bluetooth 5.2 has been out for a while. And with that Bluetooth 4.2, the maximum communication range is about 32.8 feet. That's about 10 meters. It has a transmission range of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, which once again is exactly the same as the XB12. And speaking of the same features as the previous model, it's also IP67, which is completely dustproof and submersible up to 3 feet for up to 30 minutes. Sony did keep the ability to pair two XB13s together with their stereo pair feature, but unfortunately it looks like they got rid of the auxiliary port, which for me doesn't really matter too much, but I know a lot of you guys out there love the auxiliary port. So what about the dimensions here? It comes in at 3 inches in diameter and about 3 3/4 inches in height, and it weighs approximately 9 ounces. Alright, so let's quickly talk about the XB13 before I jump into the sound test here. So as you can see, it looks very similar to the previous model XB12, except for the bottom here. It's more squared off as opposed to the more rounded bottom right down by the passive radiator as you saw on the XB12. So if I show you the bottom here, yes, the XB13 does have a downward firing passive radiator, and here's one of the vents on the very bottom of the speaker, and then we do have the vents that circle the bottom here. Then on the very top here, we have that 1.8-inch mono driver shooting straight up. And then in typical Sony fashion, we have that Sony branding going vertical up the speaker, as we can see here. And I really like the design here. If it's not broken, why fix it? And the speaker itself feels very high quality. On the very bottom of the speaker, it has some soft touch rubber, and that helps it when it's sitting straight down. It won't fly all over the place as I've seen in other speakers. JBL, I'm looking right at you. And for the rest of the speaker, it has a very high quality hard plastic feel to it. Off to the side here, we have this multifunctional lanyard that is upgraded from last year's XB12. Right here, we can detach the lanyard from the latch and we can hang this basically anywhere we want. I call it the lanyard. Some of you might call it a wrist strap, but regardless of what you call it, it is completely removable if you don't want it. And now let's check out the buttons here. So right here, we have the power button. It does have the one touch on, one touch off feature that I'm not necessarily a fan of in Bluetooth speakers. Right next to that, we have the Bluetooth button / stereo pair button. So if you have an extra XB13, you can pair both of those together to get some nice stereo sound, because you're not getting stereo sound out of this because it's just a mono driver. Right next to that, you have the play pause button. Click it once to start playing and then click it again one time to pause the music. But you can also double click to skip forward and triple click to skip backwards. And if you get a phone call while you're playing music on the XB13, you can just click that play pause button right there and answer the phone call. And then you can see the microphone right below that. And let me tell you, this might be one of the worst microphones that I've ever heard in a Bluetooth speaker. And then right next to that, we have the standard volume up and volume down buttons. And then underneath this flap, we do have a USB Type-C charging port. And as I already mentioned, there is no more auxiliary port, which I know is an absolute deal breaker for a lot of you, but for me, I never really used the auxiliary port, so that's not really a huge deal, at least in my opinion. They claim this has 16 hours of battery life, but that's with the volume only at 26. And this is not a loudspeaker at all. At volume 26, you can barely hear it. Even at 50% volume, this is a very quiet speaker. But getting back to the battery life here, charging this was an absolute pain in the butt. It took about 4 hours to charge this speaker from completely dead to 100%. And looking at the user manual here, I can't find the maximum wattage output here. It does say rated 2.0 watt minimum RMS power, but I read in another review that it is a 5 watt speaker, but I just can't find anything about that in the user manual. And I'm not really sure if that's true or not, because this is one of the weakest power-wise speakers that I've seen in a long time. Even at 100%, which I definitely don't recommend in the speaker, it's still very, very weak sounding. So I'm actually going to compare this to one of my favorite micro budget Bluetooth speakers on the market today, the JBL Go 3. Now, I wasn't going to do this until I heard the sound quality that came out of the XB13. And after you guys hear the difference between these two, we'll discuss. So the XB13 is about 2 feet from the microphone, dead center here on the desk. And just so it's fair, I'm gonna hold both speakers at about a 45-degree angle while the song is playing. I'll start at 50% on both speakers, and then after a minute, I'll go up to 75%, and then a minute later, I'll go up to 100%. All right, so that's it. So we'll start at 50% and go. Alright, so there you have it. And the reason why I brought in the Go 3 to compare it with the XB13 is because I am not a big fan of the sound that comes out of the XB13 at all. I wasn't going to do a comparison at all, but once I heard the sound out of this, I wanted to compare it to my favorite micro budget speaker on the market today, and that's the JBL Go 3. Now let's talk about the sound in the XB13. I can give it this. It does have better lows, a little bit better bass than the JBL Go 3. I think what Sony accomplishes in regards to the low frequency or bass in this little speaker is pretty impressive. But the positives end there. When it comes to the mid-range and the high range, I just don't like the sound out of this XB13. Yes, Sony did put the sound diffusion processor in the new XB13 that's supposed to give it more of a 360-degree radius of sound, and yes, it does accomplish that. But because they did that, it flattens the sound out considerably. At least to my ears, the sound sounds very flat, very dull. And when I say the sound sounds dull coming out of this speaker, I'm trying to explain, say for example, this speaker is here, and then I hung a blanket right in front of it and I expect you to listen to it. That's exactly what this sounds like. It sounds like it's passing through a blanket or just something that's in front of it. And I especially heard that with rock music and hip hop when I was listening to normal songs. Of course, I can't play normal songs. Thanks, copyright laws. But if I played any music with any kind of voice or singing or guitar or snare drum, it just sounds super muddy, super dull, super flat. And then when we get to the highs sound very, very tinny. It just doesn't sound good at all. The sound clarity just isn't there. I want to be able to tell low, mid, and high. I want to be able to separate those three and have some sound clarity. If you like that, this is not the speaker for you. Strangely enough, I played some classical music and it sounded halfway decent on the XB13, but basically any other music that I tried, it just sounds flat. I don't like it. It's exactly opposite of what I thought about the Go 3. If you guys saw my Go 3 review, you're gonna know that I absolutely love this speaker. And if you haven't seen my Go 3 review, I'll put a link below in my description box. But even in this test right here, you can see the mid and the high range completely blows this out of the water. And even though I give the win regarding the low frequencies to the XB13, still, the JBL Go 3 is no slouch. Just in my opinion, it doesn't sound as good as the XB13 here. And then let's talk about just the pure power, the loudness of each speaker. As you guys heard, at 50%, you can barely even hear the XB13. Where the JBL Go 3, it almost sounds perfect at 50%. And then the sweet spot at 75%, it got a little bit better, but still super low. Very, very nice in the Go 3. And then at 100%, where I never recommend you ever listening to a speaker because things just kind of get a little bit blown out, it's still super weak in the XB13. Where in the Go 3, it's almost too loud for its size. So overall, would I recommend the XB13 by Sony? Not really. Why would I recommend the XB13 at $60 when you can pick up a JBL Go 3 at $40? Or even the JBL Clip 4 at $60? Why would I pay $60 for this when I can get the exceptional JBL Clip 4 for the same price? And this speaker sounds so much better than this speaker, at least in my opinion. And then if you have an extra $20 to spend, why not just pick up the bigger brother to the 13, the XB23? So $60 for the XB13 or $80 for the XB23. I'm probably going to drop the extra $20 for the 23 here, especially after hearing the sound that comes out of this speaker. So who do I recommend buys this speaker? Well, if you're a Sony fanboy and has to have everything Sony releases, yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out, go ahead and buy it. But for literally everybody else in the world, buy a Go 3 at $20 cheaper, a Clip 4 for the exact same price, or splurge a little bit and spend $20 more for the XB23. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for this video. What do you think of the Sony XB13? Unfortunately, this is probably my least favorite Sony Bluetooth speaker release, at least as of late. But if you guys want to check this out for yourself, I will have links below in my description box. But if you guys did enjoy this video, please give me that thumbs up. Please subscribe. And go!